The Corby case, cocaine busts, camel costumes appearing on airport staff. People are rapidly losing confidence in aviation security in Australia. That's why moves were taken by Deputy Chair of the Joint Committee of Public Accounts and Audit, Sharon Grierson, to have an inquiry into the matter reopened.
More people are travelling in every day on our airlines, but we are having continuing incidents that suggest that there is a safety and security problem continuing.
The Audit Committee also wants to know what the Inspector of Transport Security, Mick Palmer, has been doing to bring the situation under control.
We found out this week in Parliament that he hasn't actually been on the job since February. He's been transferred over to the Row and Salon case for immigration inquiry.
There are fears that the drug smuggling and security breach allegations could be overshadowing an even greater threat to Australia's safety.
If crime can happen, if anything else can happen, then wouldn't terrorism be easy to bring about as well?
There will be a public hearing on the matter on June 15. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
They have a higher centre of gravity, can be difficult to manoeuvre in congested traffic and can hinder visibility of low-lying objects. It's these aspects of driving a four-wheel drive that hunter clubs are teaching owners of the vehicles at the Camping, Caravan, Four-Wheel Drive Fish and Boat Show in Maitland.
Take a little bit more care and look over your shoulder, just like as if you're driving a motorbike. Just look out for things on the road and just take a little bit more care.
Mr Fitzpatrick says he'd like to see compulsory training for all four-wheel drive owners. While driver safety took a front seat today, there was plenty of interest being shown in the other items on display, including this compact caravan, which really does contain a queen-size bed. There are all the ingredients needed to add comfort to a trip away, as well as a few non-essentials, and this all-terrain vehicle is adding a new dimension to the world of farming. The show continues until Sunday. Colleen West, NBN News.
He appears fearless, robbing a number of hunter institutions most of the time without disguise over the period of a month. These pictures of the man were taken at the Lambton branch of the Newcastle Permanent on the 2nd of May. It's alleged he robbed the Maitland Mutual Building Society in High Street a fortnight later. The same man is also believed to have held up institution branches in Stockton, Raymond Terrace and New Lambton.
He enters the branches, produces a note and threatens staff. Then leaves the branches with a moderate amount of cash.
The man is described as being 35 to 40 years old, around 173 centimetres tall, with a solid build, receding ginger hair and a tattoo on the back of his right hand. Police are calling for assistance to identify and locate the bandit, who managed to evade officers who spotted him in Mayfield yesterday.
He's wearing a black beanie, a red and black zippered jacket, a dark coloured tracksuit pants with a stripe down the side and thongs.
Information should be forwarded to Waratah detectives or Crime Stoppers. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
In its heyday, this was a lavish ballroom for the who's who of the region, but sadly for the last decade it's been in a state of decay. But not for too much longer. By October, a thorough restoration, sympathetic to the building's rich heritage, will be complete, allowing former patrons to step back in time.
Yeah, we get a lot of tales now about 50 years ago, people having their wedding here or staying here after their wedding, and a lot of people I think will be keen to come back and have a look at it again.
While the bottom floor will remain as is, the existing 108 rooms will be transformed into 80 boutique-style suites like this one, each with its own bathroom.
We're also doing the old ballroom, turning it into a function centre and a piano bar, cocktail bar.
And with views like this, why not make the most of them? A rooftop bar and restaurant part of the plan. And it's not the only good news for the revitalisation of the city. Work's already begun on the Market Street markets. Architect designed steel arches have been erected to hold up sales, forming an undercover area for up to 160 stalls.
The vast majority of those stall holders are local people with local products, so not the sorts of things that you would find in a suburban shopping centre. It's a really exciting mix of merchandise.
It's hoped that the markets, which will begin operation late next month, will lure more shoppers to the mall.
They're going to bring up to 7,000 people each Saturday and each Sunday, and we'll really revitalise this part of the city for us.
What a welcome back. Sandhills followed by a beach run, but Andrew Johns couldn't be happier. While recovering from a broken jaw, Johns also worked on strengthening his body over the last 6 weeks and believes he's ready to return.
I feel unbelievable, really. I feel really focused, on the mental side of things, but physically I feel unbelievable. So it's one thing feeling it and getting out in the field and reproducing it, but I'm confident once I get on the field that I can really make an impact.
Still requiring a final medical clearance on his jaw, Johns is happy to play despite some discomfort. It's more mental anguish that Brett Comorley has endured since Wednesday night, and Johns could only feel for the Blues halfback who suffered criticism and calls that Johns himself should be rushed back for Game 2.
I think I'm a long way off that, but if I can get back and play all right and maybe considered, but it wouldn't matter if Superman was out there at number 7 the other night, he wouldn't have made an impact.
One who'd know better than most is Michael Hagan. With a most unique view, the Queensland coach has no doubts his club captain would handle it if chosen to play against his state team.
Given that he's played sort of 5 games and he's worked so hard recently, I don't think that'd be a problem for him. I think he's, mentally and physically, I think he'd be in pretty good shape.
Despite Newcastle enjoying the bye this weekend, Hagan was straight back to work at his club today as they get to employ an Origin-like preparation ahead of its clash with Brisbane in 9 days. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Well, the dust has settled on Origin 1 and it was certainly a magical event fitting of its 25th year anniversary. And while there were so many highlights, turning points and heroes made on the night, there was one hero on the losing team that caught my eye, and that was Nathan Hindmarsh. Now, in the first half, New South Wales had only 40% of possession and made 88 more tackles than Queensland. There were hardly any breaks in that period. It took 38 minutes for the first scrum to pack down. Both teams were physically exhausted and New South Wales were well and truly on the back foot, down 13-0 at half-time. Nathan Hindmarsh's effort-on-effort levels set a whole new benchmark. He made an incredible 31 tackles in 25 minutes. Sitting on the sideline, there are many memorable moments and images of him pushing himself through the pain barrier, but one in particular where he collapsed in exhaustion and he couldn't take another step. The trainer comes out to his attention and remarkably, 3 plays later, he's carting the ball up. He ended up making 47 tackles, but those efforts in the first 30 minutes of that game will go down in Origin folklore for New South Wales and something that I won't forget. Okay, on to round 12, and tonight the Bulldogs take on the Cowboys at the Gold Coast. It's a home game for the Bulldogs. The Cowboys are carrying a few injuries into the match, of course, from Origin, but I'm going for North Queensland in that one. 3 games on Saturday. The Broncos, Sharks and the Roosters to win. On Sunday, I'm liking the Warriors, Storm and the Sea Eagles. Of course, the Knights still had the bye. Good luck for your tips. I'll see you all next week.
The man they call Hollywood will spend as much time in the gym during the coming week as in the ring. Used to his running battle in making the weight for fight nights, the task is easier than pronouncing the name of his Thai opponent.
Zingzamudramsam is the guy I'm fighting, and he's just a very well-conditioned walk-up fighter.
He's also another tough step on his way up the rankings ladder in the famed World IBF, where a top 10 spot opens doors in America and lucrative fights.
Been guaranteed a fight on a TV show in America, so maybe a Don King promotion. So it's all exciting stuff, but I can't get there without winning this fight first.
Newcastle Rugby League and Central Charlestown is in the action again tonight after its midweek game. Cessnock and Wyong's clash tomorrow highlights the round. University has the job of stopping the Waratahs juggernaut tomorrow in Newcastle and Hunter Rugby, which also features several interesting matches. One game tomorrow in the NBN Soccer League, while South Cardiff, the Magic, Hamilton and Western all play at home on Sunday. After the morale-sapping loss of last week against the Sydney Swifts, the Hunter Jaegers needed a strong performance to get things back on track. Up against a Melbourne side that boasts 6 Australian players, that's easier said than done, and they quickly jumped 6 goals clear. But Hunter stood tall, its defence turning away attacks. While the mid-court pressured as well, but the class act was up front in the shooting circle, which was firing. The captain leading by example as Hunter hung tough. It's the sort of play that must have impressed Australian coach Norma Plummer, and it's certainly inspired her team. Defenders made Melbourne work for everything, as the Jaegers refused to lie down. Altschwager kept beating the double team to keep things ticking over, while Kirsty Monaghan is becoming a final quarter specialist. But the big games draw out the big names, and they don't come much better than Australian shooter Sherelle McMahon, who left her stamp on a game that fell the Phoenix way, but not without a fight.
John Stone was just 16 when he joined the Merchant Navy, and after 3 months of service, his ship loaded with iron ore was torpedoed by a Japanese sub off the New South Wales south coast in 1943.
14 of us got off, 36 went down, and I'm the only one left out of that 14.
As painful as it is, the former merchant seaman makes the trip to Newcastle from Melbourne every year for this service, a duty, a tribute and a privilege.
I didn't think I'd be with them because I remember getting sucked down with the ship when she went down, got up on the boat deck, and that was it. And the next minute they said, jump. Too late, she's gone.
On one ship alone, 12 merchant sailors from Newcastle were killed in an enemy attack off Nora Head while serving their country in June 1942.
The Merchant Navy and the Merchant Mariners played a very important role in keeping the supply lines open.
Shadowed by the port, the Newcastle Memorial is a fitting tribute to those lives lost to the sea forever. The stone reads, "Hark, do you hear the sea?" These people certainly do, the cries of family and friends who never returned. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
At about 11:50am this morning, a 38-year-old Wallsend man was arrested in a Marsden Street, Shortland address. He was returned to Waratah Police Station.
A spot of light reading for Merewether beachgoers this morning, perhaps tongue-in-cheek. The sign erected by a disgruntled anonymous resident read, "Your surf house, proudly maintained by Newcastle City Council." It encouraged people to contact the General Manager or Lord Mayor. John Tate says he has no problems fielding calls on the issue.
I wish they would contact me because I'd be saying to them, write to the councillors who voted for the further delays.
The vote he's referring to was nearly 3 months ago when some councillors called for another report into the structural value of Surf House, further delaying any action on the site. While the Lord Mayor supports demolishing the building, he says the State's Heritage Office is in the process of trying to change the Local Government Act to allow a 30-year lease of Surf House rather than 20 years.
It could lead to the building being restored by private investment, most likely for the purposes of it being a restaurant.
There's no such delays for the old Hunter Water building. Identified as a structure of local significance, it's been sold for more than $5 million to Newcastle-based company Tower Investments. Hunter Water believes the building will be used for commercial purposes in the short term. Hunter Water is due to move into its new Honeysuckle offices in December. Todd Nardi, NBN News. Greeted by calm waters as it entered Newcastle Harbour, the Vega generally likes to whip up a storm wherever it goes. This East Coast voyage is about fighting for nuclear disarmament. Greenpeace says it's concerned that the US is prepared to use nuclear weapons in preemptive strikes.
The Australian government on one hand says that it's strongly committed to nuclear disarmament, and on the other hand is the number one ally of the United States, a country which is armed with nuclear weapons and is threatening to use them.
Newcastle's own Ben Morrow is part of the four-man crew. Tonight the Greenpeace campaigners will be spreading their anti-nuclear weapons message in the Hunter.
It's been shown that they have a strong no-war attitude, the people of Newcastle, and I think our message will ring strongly with Novocastrians.
Greenpeace also reacted to the suggestions from Premier Bob Carr that New South Wales should look to nuclear power as a solution for future energy needs.
Nuclear power is a massively expensive and extremely wasteful process that produces radioactive waste which is going to be burdened for hundreds of thousands of generations.
Todd Nardi, NBN News.
Doug Cowan reckons he's one of the lucky people. 47 years on the job and he wouldn't change a thing. Although he is glad drilling techniques have improved since his early days visiting primary school kids in country Victoria.
Well, we pedalled the drill rather like a singer-sewing machine and we got by.
In 1960, Doug began working in Beaumont Street, Hamilton, alongside Trevor Emanuel, but relocated up the road after the Newcastle earthquake, where his practice and patient loyalty grew.
I've treated the great-grandchildren. So 3 generations are fairly common, and 4 generations, there are a few of those.
Specialising in reducing headaches caused by joint dysfunction and developing cosmetic techniques, the 70-year-old is highly regarded in his field. While working with the Australian Dental Association, he claims the fight to add fluoride to the Hunter's water, up against a sceptical public and water board, is the biggest advance in dental health.
It was nothing for me to come to work on Saturday mornings and have 10 people waiting for me to open the door, all with toothache, with their children who'd been up all night. And you never see that now.
While he's enjoyed nearly 5 decades of treating patients, Doug says it's time for a break. One he plans to share with his wife Tony and growing number of grandchildren on their Glenmartin property. And when asked for some final pearls of wisdom,
Clean your gums and your teeth will take care of themselves.
A day after probably the biggest game of his career, Jared Mullen can now say he's played with the world's best.
Everything I've ever dreamed of. He's really great. Smartest footballer I've ever played with. He knows a lot about the game and he's taught me a lot in the past 6 months.
For a teenager who only last year was playing schoolboy league, Mullen shouldered the pressures of a playmaker in a team desperate for a win. The loss aside, it was a match he won't forget, playing alongside Johns and opposite fellow 5'8", Darren Lockyer.
He's a real class player. I remember growing up watching him play and it's good to get a game against him. So that's my biggest test so far.
In his comeback game, Andrew Johns made his presence felt early. And when George Carmont scored, the foundations of the new grandstand shook with a thundering roar. Thaiday gave the hosts another 4, but before they could blink, Brisbane was ahead going into the break. Johns slipped right back into his role as boss, but the Knights needed more than orders. Todd Lowry was among those to make his comeback after a 7-week layoff from injury.
Different result would have been nice, but personally it's just good to get through the game.
Fullback David Siege wasn't as lucky, damaging ligaments in his elbow, while Matt Gidley suffered a groin injury. Despite 11 straight losses, the Knights say their campaign hasn't gone to the Dogs, now preparing to face a red-hot Parramatta outfit on Friday night. Qualifying second, Stoner didn't waste any time coming out of the blocks, posting the quickest time in lap 2. Viewers joined Stoner for the ride before making his move. And he held on to it, maintaining a healthy buffer up until lap 15. It was a Honda 1-2 at the finish though. Stoner edged out of third, if only just. To bikes of a different kind, and the lure of a gold medal has put a whole new spin on BMX, now part of the Olympic program.
You know, definitely inspired me to keep on going for those next 3 years and try and get to that Olympics. If not, I probably would have slowly faded out.
Showing his wares at Argenton over the weekend, Luke Medill is the country's number 1. In the A-Pro men's final, Lake Macquarie rider Chris Westwood finished 4th behind a field of visitors. 6-time world champ Melissa Mankowski won her event at what's considered the richest country BMX meeting in the state, a warm-up for the 16-year-old Queenslander ahead of the Sports World Championships.
It's going to be good. I had a bit of disappointment last year. I fell off and broke my wrist 2 days before racing.
And off the beaten track, round 3 of a state cross-country series saw Hunter riders edged out of the elite men's class at Killingworth, with Sean Lewis from the Southern Highlands taking top honours.
For many of us, separation of the recyclables from the garbage is our contribution to a better environment. But Port Stephens residents have become so committed to cutting the waste that their single split bins used for both rubbish and recycling are being replaced with 2 bins. This week's arrival of the red top rubbish and yellow lidded recycling bins comes ahead of a major overhaul of waste services from early next month.
It's probably the biggest contract council ever signs. It's over quite a few years. We're talking 28,000 households, that's 56,000 bins. So it's a fair job in logistics just to deliver the bins and finally get rid of the old ones.
At present, around 70% or 24,500 tonnes of the waste Port Stephens residents put out each year is either sent to be processed into compost or recycled. Mayor Craig Bowman says more recycling can slow the amount of material that's being sent to the dump.
Ground fill is down to about 30%, and we're trying to get that down to 15%.
And the recycle reuse message has also been taken up by Cessnock, Maitland and Lake Macquarie residents, with Hunter Resource Recovery having diverted over 161,000 tonnes of recyclables from the waste stream in just 8 years. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Back in Newcastle, last night's win has been somewhat overshadowed for Andrew Johns, with club and Blues teammate Danny Badiris out for the next 2 weeks.
That's awful news for Danny and also the club.
It was a high price to pay for what was a great night at the office.
That was my first win for 200 days, a journo told me, so that's an interesting stat, and I might get a flood of them now.
But not before another trip to the surgeon after the New South Wales skipper tore ligaments in his foot, placing him in doubt for the Origin decider. Surfacing unscathed and wearing the number 15 jumper, Steve Simpson actually started the match and made his presence felt early. In the first 15 minutes of play, the Knights powerhouse had 12 tackles and 4 hit-ups to his name, laying the foundation for what shaped up to be an awesome win. A showdown with Blues lock and former stablemate Ben Kennedy now looms when Manly hosts the Knights.
It'll be great. I've never played against him before, so it's going to be a great challenge, and he's a great competitor, so yeah, I'm looking forward to Sunday as well.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Detecting drugs in your drink can be as easy as putting a few drops of a suspect beverage onto a specially marked coaster, which turns blue if the drink has been spiked. The litmus-style test picks up traces of a range of amphetamines and illicit drugs, including GHB, also known as fantasy or liquid ecstasy. The Maitland Liquor Accord is working alongside police and the Hunter New England Area Health Service to determine whether coasters would be beneficial in licensed premises.
One incident is one incident too many. We've experienced 3 in the last 12 months, and Maitland Liquor Accord is about being proactive in our community.
There are some limitations to the device, which doesn't detect all the 30-odd drugs known to be used in drink spiking, the most common being alcohol. The test is also ineffective on wine products, beverages containing milk or cream and oily liqueurs. We should know within a month whether or not the coasters will be used in the Maitland area.
Even if the whole awareness of these coasters is that you don't leave your drinks unattended ever, that's a good message we're getting out there.
Colleen West, NBN News.
A trip to the Lambton pool will set you back $2. But in contrast, visitors to the Newcastle Region Art Gallery are greeted by 2 words: free entry. That's prompted sporting identity and counsellor Helen O'Neill to ask why.
I just very innocently asked, why don't we pay to go to an art gallery, and subsequently, why don't we pay to go to a museum? And it's just snowballed.
Helen's innocent comments made during a council meeting today hit the headlines. The debate dubbed suburbs versus Silvertails, or as some see it, sport versus culture. But General Manager Janet Dorr thinks differently.
It was pointed out on the night that we don't charge for Black Pat Reserve, we don't charge for beaches, and we don't charge for ocean baths, and all our parks and recreation reserves. So it's only a small part we're talking about with pools.
And Helen's comments come as the council plans to pledge $5 million for a planned gallery expansion.
And I do believe there should be a user pays tariff placed on it.
But there are concerns that if there was a cost, it would dramatically cut the number of visitors to the Newcastle Region Art Gallery.
If they're going to sort of have to pay quite a few dollars, well then they may not go, and that's sad.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. You could have been forgiven for thinking Backyard Blitz was in town. The only difference, no Jamie Dury or Scott Cam. Instead, 16 GIO employees left the office for the day for some team building, making over the gardens surrounding the Mater Hospital's NBN Telethon villas.
We've got a volunteer day that allows staff to come out and give back to the community, so we thought the Mater Hospital was a good opportunity to come back and spend the day here building the garden.
Now 18 years old, the gardens needed some tender loving care, and they certainly received that, with the new garden beds, plants, even $800 worth of turf, all donated by local businesses. It's hoped the new gardens will help brighten the lives of cancer patients who call the villas home for 6 weeks during their treatment.
To be able to come out and sit and enjoy the gardens makes a huge difference, particularly when you're a long way from home.
If we can manage to get a good win against Perth, that means that we've beaten all the teams below us and we've had a good look at them, and hopefully we can consolidate that 4th spot and put a bit of a buffer between us and the teams below us.
There were more than 1 million split air conditioners sold in Australia last year, and with the number of sales expected to climb in the next decade, the question remains just who will service the systems. 15 new pre-apprenticeship positions in refrigeration and air conditioning will be made available at the Newcastle campus of the Hunter Institute of TAFE next semester, allowing students to complete their first year of training in just 16 weeks. They'll then work alongside a local employer for a short time.
We'll be selecting employers based on the fact that they will keep these people in employment.
That would then allow the students to begin a formal apprenticeship. There'll also be new places made available in trade courses at Muswellbrook and Cessnock, with 15 new carpentry positions at the Ourimbah campus on the Central Coast. The announcement forms part of a $2 million state government initiative to tackle skill shortages in New South Wales. Those wanting to find out more should contact their local TAFE campus. Colleen West, NBN News.
The cold doesn't really bother riders, but dust just isn't welcome. Once in the thick of the 10-kilometre course at Killingworth, though, it was more a battle of stamina. You can't argue with the popularity of these endurance events. Last season, the series averaged just over 200 riders a meet. Today, there was 456 racing the clock.
We've got an Olympian here today, Josh Fleming's here today, and it's a very rare sport where an 8-year-old can share the same course as an Olympian.
Most rode in the team format, but around 40 did it Ironman style, riding the entire 8 hours. And it's not like they take it easy, lapping the 10k course on average once every 26 minutes. After 180 kilometres in the saddle, Graham Albon was the best of the solos. From pedals to pacing, and Newcastle Harness Racing's triple treat for 3-year-olds wrapped up overnight with a nail-biting finish in the Derby. Mighty River with a mighty run, beating favourite Advance Attack on the line to win the $20,000 feature.
Ends up in the hands of Chris Hicks. He comes centre field, looking for an opening. The Knights line is holding, but for how much longer? Tackle 3, Randall, Terry Hill to the line, he reaches out.
They had the Knights defence moving laterally now. Terry Hill very, very strong. The ball doesn't touch the ground, the momentum doesn't stop it.
They look like ordinary power poles, but these masts on Nowlands Gap in Murrurundi are in fact monitoring the speed and consistency of the wind. Macquarie Generation is continuing to respond to calls to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in Australia, looking at the viability of developing wind farms at several sites in regional New South Wales, including one right here.
There has been quite considerable consultation by Macquarie Generation in the area here. They have had several meetings with the Murrurundi Development Association and also set up in the markets area twice.
It's expected that between just 3 and 5 turbines would generate enough renewable energy to service the entire town, which has a population of around 1,000 people, and it's hoped the benefits will be widespread.
I guess it'll mean some jobs locally. It'll certainly mean a tourist attraction.
We've all got to look towards sustainable energy sources rather than digging up coal and burning it as fast as we can.
While early findings have been promising, Macquarie Generation says we can expect to know within weeks whether or not it would take the next step and submit a development application for a wind farm.
If all of the environmental concerns can be addressed, I think that the community will embrace it.
Colleen West, NBN News.
The Hamilton Railway Station car park was cordoned off just after 10:30 last night as police pieced together the circumstances leading up to the stabbing death of a 33-year-old woman from Islington. It's believed she was walking alone along Beaumont Street when she was allegedly confronted by a woman in the car park. Police allege the 33-year-old was stabbed after a heated argument and a scuffle. She was pronounced dead on arrival at the John Hunter Hospital.
Obviously there was some sort of beef between the two of them which has escalated to violence, but we would say to the people in the community, it was not a random attack. They really don't need to be frightened that this might happen to them.
With help from several witnesses, police established a description of the alleged suspect and began to search the Hamilton area for her. Police say a short time later the 43-year-old woman was found in a nearby pub. She was arrested and taken in for questioning but refused to be interviewed. Police found a knife on the woman and tests are being carried out to confirm whether it's the murder weapon. She's been charged with murder and will reappear in Newcastle local court via video link from jail on August 24. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Rusty, the ridgeback cross dingo, was lapping up the attention outside his Talara home today after helping save his family from an early morning fire.
I woke up in the morning to Rusty barking. I heard a crackling in the kitchen. I didn't think nothing of it. You'd wake up in the morning, hear a crackling, don't think my house is on fire.
16-year-old Shannon was inside with his mum and 4 brothers when the blaze broke out at the Junction Street house.
Opened up the lounge room door into the dining room and smoke just started pouring in that, seeing flames coming from in the kitchen. First reaction was go and wake everyone up, get them out of the house, then try to go in and put it out. But yeah, by the time everyone was out of the house, basically most of the kitchen was engulfed in flames.
A fire extinguisher in the rented house didn't work, neither did any of the 3 battery-powered smoke detectors. The family is tonight staying with friends, grateful to have survived the blaze with the help of their faithful pup, Rusty.
No, you see it happen on TV all the time and you never think that's going to happen to me, but yeah, finally did.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
For 20 days now, the aircraft maintenance workers have held a 24-hour picket line, demanding collective agreements to replace individual contracts. Today, Premier Bob Carr supported their fight.
We believe that every worker's got a right to be part of a collective agreement.
Workers in the Hunter Valley working for Boeing get paid $3 or $4 less per hour than the same technicians do in Queensland and Victoria and Western Sydney.
With the Boeing workers' dispute being handled under the Federal Industrial Relations System, a visit from the New South Wales Premier brings little more than moral support. Mr Carr says the number of workers being forced into individual contracts will increase as a result of planned Commonwealth industrial relations reforms.
When John Howard gets his legislation through the Senate, there's going to be more and more of that across Australia.
Some workers return to the job today, but say action will be stepped up if Boeing doesn't come to the party by Wednesday.
We've already won, it's just Boeing doesn't know that yet.
However, Boeing has maintained it will not enter into collective agreements. The company has made an offer that includes a pay rise for the majority of employees and a change to the promotion system. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
We can't afford it, and the answer is simple. The Commonwealth promised the matching money the Commonwealth should deliver.
At Merriwar Way, this was the first rain in nearly 3 months, the thirsty soil lapping it up as fast as the drops could fall. It meant a drenching for the dog, but for grazier Ian Beard, it was like liquid joy.
At least it gives you a bit of heart to go on. And we need a lot of rain to really break the drought properly, but this is a good start anyway.
Ian's been farming around the district for most of his life. This, he says, is the worst he's seen it. For the past 3 months, he's been on the road with his cattle. It's become a gruelling way of life.
Never been able to get a proper break. We get a short period of where you think things are on the mend, and then it'll turn dry again and sort of back into drought again. So it's been starting to get quite monotonous actually.
A little rain has certainly livened things up on the land.
Well, I certainly didn't expect my boots to end up looking like this today, but I have to say it's a pretty good feeling. And this rain's going to do a lot of good too. It may not end up being drought-breaking, but at least it'll provide local farmers with some much-needed hope.
It'll take a while for the countryside to green up, but already there are strong signs of renewed farmer confidence. The most recent cattle store sale at Scone was like a party. Everyone was there and buying up big.
Some people think that it rains grass, but it doesn't always rain grass. It made a big difference to the sale here today.
It never ceases to amaze me, the optimism of people on the land, because we've seen a rise of approximately $200 a head here today, and that's been on one fall of rain.
Some areas have fared better in the rain stakes than others, but at least we all now know it can happen.
I think the fact that it has rained, and even though it's going to look like a bit of a green drought, we'll get some green feed coming through. It'll be still quite short, and the cool temperatures won't help. But I think just the aesthetic appeal of having green on the hills will actually lift everyone's spirits.
Tomorrow night we look at life on the land from behind the farm gate.
We're not making a great deal of money, if any, but it'll get better. You just got to be patient.
And one country family struggle to survive the drought.
With much of the top 25 sidelined, today's recovery held few familiar faces. However, this is one fans are getting to know well since signing in late April. Finding his feet at fullback in recent weeks, Milton Thaiday really stepped out yesterday. Despite personnel problems, the Knights shocked the home side again before the break. With a familiar-looking pass from George Carmont for Anthony Quinn's try, which gave them hope at half-time. But in an incredible 12-minute burst after the break, the Sea Eagles ran in 5 tries, putting an end to any thoughts of an upset at Brookvale. A second to Thaiday and his 4th for the year was one of the few highlights in a game that had grown out of reach.
It always feels good to cross that white line, not only for myself but for my teammates.
Having signed only 2 months ago, Thaiday is only just reaching the sort of fitness required to play at the NRL level. Like everyone though, he's hoping skipper Andrew Johns will prove he's in time to play the Panthers this weekend.
I'm looking forward to running off him. Hopefully that neck injury ain't going to, slow him down or anything. I'm sure it won't, but it'll be good to, hopefully hit a few holes from him.
The Fern Bay layout is hard enough when conditions are good, but as the day wore on, winds only got stronger and scores weren't the only thing blowing. On the 6th, it was a whole different story. Staff somehow got the green playable after vandals had dug into it only nights earlier. Crystal Woolridge had to putt straight through it all and looked like she had made a great fist of it. But showing how cruel this game can be, her brave effort ended with little reward. Current Australian amateur champion Sarah O had an up-and-down day but stayed composed enough to shoot one over. Save for one bad hole that cost her 3 strokes, Central Coaster Nikki Garrett showed the sort of form that will keep her a danger for the title as well, ending the day 4 over. West Australian Bree Turnbull is the one to catch. With this event doubling as a ranking tournament for national selection, she made the long journey east. And with play like this, she'll prove tough to beat over the 4-day event. New South Wales-based players, meanwhile, will be fighting for state spots for the upcoming interstate series.
I'm not confident, actually. I mean, we have to do a lot of hard negotiating, and you know, if we can't get a satisfactory outcome, we'd have to reconsider our position.
A couple of hundred howling hounds, temperatures in the single digits, the sun's barely up. Enough to tempt you from your Saturday sleep-in. No such thing for these folk who count down to some heartwarming competition, hoping their dog will have his day.
And the hard thing is actually calming them down before they actually start.
Lower Belford hosted a leg of the National Dog Sled Championship, where teams of 1, 2, 4 or 6 dogs cover courses up to 5 kilometres long. Racing ceases when the mercury reaches 15 degrees, as competitors are mostly Alaskan Huskies and Malamutes. However, any pooch with a need for speed will do. A successful team has the right combination of pooch and people power, and it's tough work for all involved.
You're one of the team. If you've got 6 dogs, you're the 7th. And if you've got 1 dog, you're the 2nd one. So, yeah, you work as hard as your dogs.
While competing is what brings them together, it's obvious a whole lot of love is what keeps these people coming back year after year. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
For a side away from home and missing 2 regular starters, the Hunter Jaegers stormed out of the blocks, scoring 5 straight. They forced the home side into error, but didn't make them pay anywhere near like the Thunderbirds did. Second on the ladder, Adelaide played like a team that belongs at the top, and with their Australian reps stepping up, they were hard to stop. Ali Tucker had her usual strong game in defence for Hunter as she made the Thunderbirds work hard for everything. But it was Adelaide winning by 17. Hunter must now back up tomorrow in Newcastle, where they host the Queensland Firebirds. It was meant to be a nothing game, the result not changing anything at the top of the table. But try telling that to these guys. Country prop Tony Samble didn't see the hit that came his way, but he had his ideas. The 2 teams trading tries before Ben Peterson showed why he once played 7s for Australia as the Tars pushed ahead. A good solo effort from Luke Sherwood kept the home side in touch as it continued to ebb and flow. Another Peterson bust ended in a Tars try, but a Wanderers fightback scored a psychological blow before the semis. Either way, the Tars still enjoy the first week off in the final series, while it's do or die for both University and Hamilton. It's taken some convincing, but Kurt Gidley is to return after his horror run with injury that began way back in early May.
I've had to persuade the physio and prove myself at training, that sort of thing, and I did that. So I've done the whole week's training, so it's pulled up fine.
And what a game to make his return. All reserve seating for tomorrow's match against the Sea Eagles is sold, with 4,000 general admission tickets to be released tomorrow morning for early bird fans. After 3 months out with a range of injury concerns, Kurt won't start but will play.
I'll be starting on the bench, so then maybe come on probably in the second half, I think Hagues is thinking, and come on over at 5'8" and move Brad Ty to centre, or come on just to centre in Matt's position.
On any other day, the Hunter Street Mall probably would have looked like this. Today, however, stalls lined the pavement, people enjoyed the sunshine, and more importantly, business was booming. Compared to previous Saturdays, how does this one compare?
Absolutely fantastic. It's been awesome. We've had so many people coming through.
What a difference a market makes.
Everyone's browsing, people are interested. We've sold heaps for starters.
Our day has been amazing, so we can't complain. But my only issue was the fact that there wasn't enough fresh produce.
But there was everything else. Food, fashion, beauty and health, free samples don't hurt either. On the parking front, people didn't seem to mind paying for it after 1 o'clock. The next test, will the crowds come back?
We'll definitely be back in the next couple of weeks. If it continues like this, it'll be the regeneration of the city centre, and that's as it should be.
Adam McIlwright, NBN News. It's easy on the eye and a view which will remain for generations to come. The coastal strip beyond this lagoon, south of Redhead Surf Club to Belmont, will be preserved. The New South Wales government declaring it a state park this morning.
I couldn't believe it. I had this terrible feeling someone was joking with me.
For the past decade, Leslie Jacoby has been part of a community push to prevent the 525 hectares, some of it fragile wetlands, from being developed into housing.
It is such a good result. People have been working on this for many, many more years than I've been involved, and I'm just so thrilled for everyone.
The state government, which absorbed the land after BHP left, dismissed interest from developers bowing to public pressure. Yet to be officially named, it's the 10th state park in New South Wales to become a recreational facility.
Birdwatching platforms, ecotourism type activities, educational programs running off the site.
A trust will be established in the meantime.
I think we'll just have a quiet celebration. Thanks, Adam.
For a side that's already won the club championship, minor premiership and had coach Damien Smith voted as the best this year, the Magic still have plenty left to play for. No side has won the minor major double since 1994 and they're looking for successive titles. But standing in their way is a South Cardiff side featuring in their first ever NBN League decider.
Well, we sort of know how they play, but the thing with because they're young, they're unpredictable, and that's the key to their game.
While they may be young, 6 of the squad are still teenagers. The Gunners have pace, size and play as tough as old boots.
Yeah, we've got a fair reputation of being physical in their face, and that's what it's all about, to succeed. And we're doing quite well.
Yeah, I'm sure that's not going to change on Sunday.
No, God, no.
There'll be no love lost on the ice tomorrow at Warners Bay in day 1 of the National Ice Hockey League final series. Newcastle's North Stars will play old rivals Sydney in the semis, the same side who caught them out in last year's decider.
It has been a long wait, and didn't like that feeling after the game was over, and aren't prepared to feel that again. So,
a win tomorrow and it's through to Sunday's Goodall Cup decider.
This is our home, it's our castle, and nobody's going to come into our home, our castle, and do anything to us that we don't want them to do.
These drivers were the lucky ones, making it across just minutes before the closure of both spans of the Swansea Bridge. But as the clock struck 8 o'clock, the detour sign came out right on cue. This hapless motorist, the first to be turned around by RTA workers. Then there was the out-of-towners, this couple from Sydney given directions to turn back around and head for the F3. Their trip back home to Sydney becoming a rather frustrating affair. The 350 public bus with sign reading "To Swansea Heads" had no chance of reaching its destination, also turned back around, and some didn't take it quite as well as others. The gestures spoke 1,000 words, many frustrated by the inconvenience. But news of the closure obviously got through to most, the first hour proving quiet for the RTA. And while there are calls this week for a high-level bridge or a tunnel, member for Swansea Milton Okopoulos says there's no proposal before the government. He's attempting to find out how much money is being spent on bridge repairs. The bridge will be closed each night from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. until Thursday, September 8. It reopens for an hour from midnight.
The entertainment centre is being transformed into what can only be described as an auto art extravaganza. Auto Salon has been running for 10 years, but this is the first time a round of the National Modified Car Competition has been held in Newcastle.
We found that there's an enthusiast market here big enough now for us to be able to come down and actually, show the rest of Australia that Newcastle is a very big enthusiast market. So
300 cars will be on display, with proud owners pouring hours into buffing their fiberglass and chrome babies to their sparkling best.
The top-end cars are a work of art. They're a lot of sponsors involved, a lot of time and effort and money, a lot of money.
But it's about go as much as show, and the men will be separated from the boys when they're strapped down to the rollers in the dyno arena. Contestants have come from far and wide to show off their shimmering delights, but for those involved in the lucrative industry, it's a perfect opportunity to grab the attention of a captive market.
Good for business, to advertise, show what you can do, just the same, the atmosphere, you get everything all worked up and you get to show off your work and be proud of it.
The King or Queen of Auto Salon will be crowned on Sunday. Jessica Phillis, NBN News.
The men were working here at AJ Mar at Tomago when the Department of Immigration, Police and workers from Centrelink and the Australian Taxation Office raided the site late yesterday. 19 Korean and Chinese nationals were detained and taken to Sydney's Villawood Detention Centre. One of the men has been granted a bridging visa allowing him to remain in the country. The men were employed by a labour hire company to work on a $35 million project, which has included building 2 giant filters for Shell oil refineries at Clyde in Sydney and Geelong in Victoria. A spokesman for AJ Mar Engineering says the company has used the hire firm on numerous occasions and is surprised by what's happened. The raid hasn't slowed the company's work. The completed filters will make their way out of Newcastle Harbour tomorrow morning. Colleen West, NBN News.
It's the final round of the season general. Amazingly, every game has a chance to impact on the end result, but that's something we've come to expect this year. It is officially the closest competition ever, which means the salary cap is having a positive effect. There are also some other key indicators at the game at the moment that are performing. There's a 12% increase in crowds from 2004. Ground records have been broken left, right and centre. Sponsorship is up 39% and merchandise as well, up 41%. Now, while that's fantastic, what's even better is the football. Now, we have 3 clubs vying for the minor premiership, another 3 teams fighting it out for the top 8 spot, and 3 teams desperate to avoid the wooden spoon. Now tonight, it's the Eels and the Broncos. It's a top-of-the-table clash. Now this game could decide the minor premiership. Now on Saturday, Sharks and the Rabbitohs. Now if South lose, the Knights have a better chance of avoiding the wooden spoon. The Raiders and the Seagulls also on Saturday. If Manly loses, it will leave open 8th position. Now that'll leave it open for the Panthers and the Roosters. Also on Saturday again, Cowboys and the Storm. Both these teams on 30 points. It's the ultimate matchup for these guys going into the semi-final series. Now on Sunday, we've got a grand final replay. Roosters and the Bulldogs. We've also got the Dragons taking on the Knights. And look, the Dragons, they're gunning for a minor premiership. The Knights, obviously, hopefully, are boarding that wooden spoon. And finally, the Tigers take on the Panthers. Tigers trying to claim a top 4 spot, which will give them a home semi-final. It's all happening on the weekend. Let's have a look at the tips. A full-strength Eels tonight, I believe, will be too strong for the Broncos. On Saturday, it's the Sharks, Sea Eagles and the Cowboys. And Sunday, it's the Roosters, Go the Knights and the Panthers. What a great round. Have a good weekend. I'll see you next week.